She was humiliated by her own blood right in the middle of the will reading, shoved to the back row like a stranger called the janitor, the beggar dreaming of riches. Her ex-boyfriend, now sleeping with her half-sister, hurled the legal folder in her face, laughing. "He only pitied you, Grace. Don't delude yourself. No one knew." She would make them all kneel, erase their wealth, freeze their accounts, destroy their dynasty, live on national media. And she would do it, without shedding a single tear. Rosebridge Manor was a gilded cage, its marble floors gleaming under crystal chandeliers, the air heavy with old money and older grudges. The grand hall, draped in burgundy velvet, was a stage for the Whitmore family's latest performance. Its mahogany chairs filled with tailored suits, diamond-studded wrists, and the smug faces of an elite who thrived on exclusion. The will reading of Maxwell Whitmore, the patriarch whose empire spanned real estate, shipping, and tech, was no somber affair. It was a spectacle, a chance for his heirs to parade their entitlement, their laughter sharp as they eyed the fortune they assumed was theirs. The walls, adorned with oil portraits of Whitmore ancestors, loomed over the room, their painted eyes cold, judging as if guarding the dynasty's secrets. The crowd, family lawyers, and a few hand-picked reporters buzzed with anticipation, their whispers a chorus of greed, their champagne flutes clinking their gazes, dissecting every newcomer for signs of weakness. Into this viper's nest stepped Grace Lane. 29, her frame slight, but poised. Her black dress simple, its fabric modest, her auburn hair pulled into a tight bun, her hazel eyes steady under the chandelier's glare. Her worn leather flats whispered against the marble. Her presence a flicker in the room's opulence, a woman marked as an outsider before her shadow crossed the threshold. The humiliation began the moment Grace entered her flats, scuffing the polished floor, her black dress a stark contrast to the room's glittering excess. Veronica Whitmore Maxwell's eldest daughter, her platinum hair swept into a chignon, her emerald gown dripping with sequins, spotted Grace and sneered, her voice cutting through the hall's hum. "Now the cleaning girls think they get to attend will readings," she said, her laugh a blade, her diamond earrings flashing, implying Grace's presence was an insult to the Whitmore legacy. The crowd tittered their tailored jackets, rustling their eyes, raking Grace's modest dress, her lack of jewels a punchline. A cousin, his cufflinks gleaming, leaned toward a lawyer, his voice loud enough for the chandeliers to carry it. "She's probably here to mop up our champagne spills," he said, his chuckle sharp, suggesting her role was servitude, not inheritance. The laughter swelled, their flutes clinking, their amusement a public execution. Grace's hazel eyes stayed on the mahogany table, her fingers adjusting her bun with surgical precision, her silence, a shield, her flats gripping the marble with unspoken resolve. The audience's rage surged, Veronica's scorn, a wound, the cousin's mockery, a call for Grace's power to silence the mob. As Grace stood near the hall's entrance, her black dress catching the chandelier's faint glow, the family accountant, his ledger clutched tightly, pointed at her, his voice booming across the marble floors. This woman pilfered from Maxwell's accounts while he was bedridden. He declared, his glasses glinting, accusing her of stealing, to paint her as a criminal unfit for the Whitmore name. "She's no caregiver. She's a vulture preying on a dying man's trust." The crowd gasped, their flutes pausing mid-sip, their whispers spiking with "Hatched Thief Lane," their eyes dissecting her worn flats, her modest dress a symbol of guilt in their minds. A cousin nodded the accountant's words, a public indictment, her integrity mocked. Grace's fingers steadied her flats, a slow, deliberate motion that hinted at her unyielding composure, her silence a shield against the slander. The reporters scribbled the crowd's laughter a chorus, amplifying her isolation. The audience's rage surged, the accountant's false accusation. A wound, his greed, a call for Grace's power to shatter the hall's lies. The cruelty sharpened as Grace moved toward the back row, her dress swaying, her bun catching the chandelier's light. The lawyer, his pinstripe suit crisp, his briefcase monogrammed, intercepted her, his voice low but firm. "Last seat, miss." "This area is for family only," he said, shoving her toward a folding chair in the corner, his tone implying her blood was a stain on the Whitmore name. The crowd snickered, their diamonds glinting, their whispers spiking, her isolation a spectacle. Eleanor Whitmore Maxwell's youngest, her red lipstick bold, her silk dress clinging to her curves, laughed from the front row, her voice dripping venom. "Back row suits you, Grace, where the help belongs," she said, her smirk cruel, suggesting her existence was a charity case, not a right. The reporters scribbled the crowd's laughter a chorus, Grace's simplicity mocked. Grace's fingers brushed her flats, a subtle tug that hinted at her discipline, her silence a fortress, her hazel eyes unmoved. The audience's fury burned the lawyer's dismissal, a wound Eleanor's taunt, a call for Grace's strength to shatter the room's hierarchy. As Grace approached her seat, her flats whispering against the marble, a socialite cousin, her fur stole draped elegantly, turned to the crowd, her voice dripping with disdain. "She's fresh from the countryside, probably thinks this manor's a barn," she sneered, mocking Grace's rural upbringing to imply her presence was a rustic embarrassment to the Whitmore elite. Maxwell must have lost his mind to let this hayseed near his will. The crowd roared their cheers, spiking with hashed farm girl. Flop, their diamonds glinting, their laughter a dagger. Grace's fingers adjusted her bun, a subtle tug that hinted at her suppressed strength, her silence a fortress against the scorn. The lawyers smirked, the crowd's amusement a chorus. Her origins mocked. The audience's fury burned the cousin's taunt, a wound her arrogance, a call for Grace's power to prove her worth beyond their prejudice. The taunts grew vicious as Grace took her seat, her black dress pooling on the folding chair, her bun a quiet rebellion against the room's excess. Simon Tate, her ex-boyfriend. Now Veronica's arm candy, his tuxedo tailored, his watch, Rolex branded, leaned forward, his voice a thunderclap. "Grace, you still think old Maxwell left you anything he said?" His sneer wide, his arm around Veronica's waist, his words implying her care for Maxwell was a desperate grab for scraps. "He only called you back out of pity." The crowd roared their cheers, spiking their eyes on Grace's worn flats, her slight frame a target. A distant aunt, her pearls gleaming, joined in her voice sharp. "She's a nobody, crawling back to leech off a dying man," she said, her chuckle, a blade, suggesting Grace's devotion was a scam. The crowd's amusement was a tidal wave, their flutes raised, their laughter spiking. Grace's fingers adjusted her dress, a deliberate twist that hinted at her restraint, her silence a strategy, her hazel eyes steady under the chandelier's glare. The audience's rage piqued, Simon's cruelty a wound, the aunt's mockery a call for Grace's power to crush their illusions. As Grace settled into her folding chair, her dress pooling under the chandelier's glare, the estate manager, his tie knotted tightly, addressed the hall, his voice echoing through the velvet-draped walls. "This girl coerced Maxwell into pity. She's a schemer who played on his illness." He accused, painting her as a manipulative opportunist to discredit her bond with Maxwell. "She's no daughter, just a leech who wormed her way into his heart." The crowd erupted their cheers, spiking with "Hag Gold Digger." Grace, their bets piling up, their laughter a chorus. Grace's fingers brushed her dress, a slow, deliberate gesture that hinted at her quiet resolve amidst the slander, her silence a shield. The reporters nodded, the crowd's amusement a tidal wave, her loyalty mocked. The audience's rage peaked. The manager's false accusation, a wound his control, a call for Grace's power to silence the hall's deceit. The setup was brutal, a junior lawyer, his glasses polished, grabbing the mic, his voice booming over the hall's speakers. "Let's begin. Maxwell Whitmore's final will," he said, his smirk sly, implying Grace's presence was a formality, not a claim. The crowd leaned forward, their eyes on Veronica, their bets on her inheritance, a reporter whispering, "She's got this locked." A family friend, his tie silk, leaned toward a cousin, his voice loud. "That girl in the back, she's dreaming if she thinks she's getting a dime," he said, pointing at Grace's folding chair, his laugh sharp, suggesting her hope was a delusion. The crowd chuckled, their eyes on her modest dress, their cheers spiking. Grace's fingers tightened her bun, a subtle tug that hinted at her focus, her silence a shield, her worn flats steady on the marble. The audience's fury surged, the junior lawyer's dismissal, a wound, the friend's taunt, a call for Grace, easy to read's legacy to silence the hall's scorn. As the lawyer prepared to read, a PR consultant, her tablet glowing, stood and faced the crowd, her voice sharp and calculated. "Let's not forget, Grace spread lies about the Whitmore family to gain Maxwell's favor," she declared, orchestrating a smear campaign to shame Grace as a liar unfit for the manor's prestige. "She's a fraud who slandered us to steal a fortune." The crowd roared their cheers, spiking with "Ha! Liar Lane," their flutes clinking, their laughter a dagger. Grace's fingers tightened her bun, a deliberate twist that hinted at her unshaken discipline, her silence a fortress against the lies. The lawyers leaned closer, the crowd's amusement a chorus, her honesty mocked. The audience's fury burned the consultant's dirty tactic, a wound, her ambition, a call for Grace's power to expose the hall's hypocrisy. The humiliation peaked as the lawyer opened the will, his voice monotone, the crowd's anticipation a fever pitch. A financial advisor, her clipboard gleaming, leaned toward a reporter, her voice echoing. "She's got no place here. Probably thinks she's in a fairy tale," she said, her laugh sharp, implying Grace's presence was a fantasy unfit for the Whitmore empire. The crowd snickered their bets, piling up, their cheers spiking. A board member, his suit bespoke, joined in, his voice booming. "This is a family matter. She's just the nurse who got too comfortable," he said, his words implying her care was a job, not a bond. The crowd roared, their eyes on her folding chair, their laughter a chorus, Grace's existence mocked. Grace's fingers brushed her dress, a slow, deliberate gesture that hinted at her suppressed fire, her silence a fortress, her hazel eyes steady. The audience's rage burned, the advisor's scorn a wound, the board members' taunt a call for Grace's power to shatter their ignorance. As the will reading neared a junior heir, his cufflinks flashing, leaned forward, his voice booming across the hall. "Look at her, too mute to defend herself, sitting there like a statue." He mocked, targeting Grace's silence. To imply her lack of voice was proof of her inferiority in the Whitmore's polished world. "She's got no spine." Maxwell's pity was her only ticket here. The crowd erupted, their cheers spiking with "Had silent loser," their bets surging, their laughter a chorus. Grace's fingers steadied her flats, a slow, deliberate motion that hinted at her suppressed fire, her silence a strategy against the scorn. The reporters chuckled, the crowd's amusement a tidal wave, her restraint mocked. The audience's rage peaked, the heir's taunt a wound, his entitlement a call for Grace's power to prove her silence is her strength. The will reading began, a slow drip of disappointment, the lawyer's voice slicing through the hall's buzz. Minor bequests, cars, vacation homes, small trusts were doled out to cousins, aunts, and friends, their faces souring, their flutes set down, their entitlement bruised. Veronica sat poised, her emerald gown a throne, her smirk wide, expecting the lion's share, her fingers drumming her diamonds, catching the light. Eleanor leaned forward, her silk dress rustling, her eyes greedy, her lipstick a slash of confidence. Simon lounged beside Veronica, his Rolex ticking, his grin smug, his hand on her knee, their victory assumed. The crowd's whispers grew, their eyes on the front row, their bets on Veronica's name, the reporters' pens poised. Grace sat still, her black dress a shadow, her bun tight, her hazel eyes fixed on the mahogany table, her silence a storm brewing beneath her calm. The lawyer paused, his fingers lingering on the final page, his voice dropping. "And now the primary beneficiary," he said, his smirk fading, the room's air tightening, the chandeliers buzzing louder in the stillness. The audience's anticipation surged, their fury at the hall's cruelty. Ablaze, Grace's restraint, a spark poised to explode. The lawyer produced a red folder, its leather gleaming under the chandelier's glare. The crowd's gasps a chorus, their eyes narrowing, their bets faltering. Maxwell Whitmore's remaining assets, 96% of his estate, including Whitmore Enterprises properties and liquid holdings, are bequeathed to Grace Lane, he said, his voice a thunderclap, the hall erupting in chaos. Veronica's flute shattered on the marble, her shriek piercing her chignon, unraveling her face, a mask of fury. "That's impossible. She's a nobody," she screamed. Her diamonds dull, her entitlement a crumbling facade. Eleanor leapt up her silk dress, tearing her hands, seizing a wine bottle, hurling it at Grace, the red liquid splashing across her black dress, staining the marble, her voice a wail. "You thief! You manipulated him!" she cried, her lipstick smeared, her greed exposed. Simon stood, his Rolex glinting, his face red, grabbing the red folder and throwing it at Grace, the pages scattering, his voice a snarl. "Beggar in disguise, you conned a dying man." He shouted, his arm around Veronica, shaking his betrayal, a wound turned against him. The crowd roared, their cheers turning to jeers, their flutes crashing their faces, twisted Grace's triumph, a mirror reflecting their shame. Grace sat still, the wine dripping from her dress, her hazel eyes unmoved, her bun steady, her silence a gavel, her worn flats gripping the marble with lethal calm. The audience's triumph surged, Grace's inheritance, a thunderbolt, her restraint. a blade that sliced through the hall's arrogance, a moment that shattered their illusions. As the red folder's contents sank in, a senior lawyer, his voice trembling, stood to confirm his words echoing through the silent hall. The will is airtight. Grace Lane inherits 96%, including full control of Whitmore Enterprises. He declared, his briefcase shaking, affirming her legal dominion over the empire. The crowd's gasps turned to whispers, their eyes wide, their bets forgotten as a reporter muttered, "She's the queen now." His voice a hymn to her power. Grace's inheritance was undeniable. Her black dress, a banner, her bun, a crown, her silence, a verdict that exposed the Whitmores' shallow greed. The lawyers froze, their smirks gone. The crowd's cheers fading her authority, a fire that burned through their illusions. The audience reveled in the triumph, Grace's inheritance, a testament to her rightful claim, a blade that sliced through the hall's mockery, affirming her dominance before her next move. The hall was chaos. The crowd's arrogance shattered their bets, littering the marble like ashes of their hubris, the champagne scent now a bitter reminder of their defeat. The screens above the mahogany table flickered on their light, casting shadows. Maxwell Whitmore's face appearing gaunt, his eyes fierce, his voice a rasp from his deathbed, the room falling silent, the chandeliers dimming under his presence. "If you're watching this, I'm no longer alive to teach you this lesson," he said. His words a verdict. His oxygen mask discarded, his gaze piercing the hall. "Grace is my blood daughter. You rejected her because she wasn't born from a trophy wife. You parasites only know how to flaunt and leech. From this day forward, I leave everything to Grace, and I ask her to dismantle the rotting Whitmore name." Gasps filled the hall. The crowd's cheers replaced by whispers. The name Grace Lane, a legend they'd never connected to the woman in the back row. Veronica collapsed into her chair, her emerald gown pooling, her face pale, her diamonds meaningless. Eleanor clutched the table, her silk dress soaked, her eyes wide, her tax evasion schemes, a ticking bomb. Simon's Rolex stopped ticking, his face ashen, his arm dropping from Veronica, his betrayal a noose tightening. The reporters scribbled furiously, their cameras flashing, the crowd's whispers a hymn to Grace's power, her silence a storm that swept through the hall and left it in ruins. The audience's satisfaction surged, Maxwell's video, a gut punch. Grace's legacy, a fire that burned through their mockery, her restraint a symphony of victory. As Maxwell's video faded, Grace rose, her wine-stained dress regal, her hazel eyes scanning the hall, her phone glowing as she signaled the media, her voice low but commanding. "Let the world see their disgrace." She said, her words a decree, orchestrating the reporter's live broadcast with chilling precision, her power a masterclass in control. The crowd's whispers turned to panic, their eyes on the cameras, their flutes forgotten as a journalist shouted, "This is global." Her voice a testament to Grace's reach. Grace's strategic brilliance was undeniable, her bun tight, her flat steady, her silence, a weapon that amplified the Whitmore's ruin. The lawyers stammered, the crowd's arrogance crumbling her authority, a fire that burned through their legacy. The audience felt a surge of triumph, Grace's media orchestration, a testament to her dominance, a blade that cut through the hall's hypocrisy, affirming her power before the accounts froze. The aftermath was a reckoning. The hall's opulence, a mockery, its marble floors scarred by the truth of Grace's triumph. Grace stood, her black dress stained with wine, her bun tight, her hazel eyes cold, her voice low, each word a bullet sharp and final, slicing through the chaos with surgical precision. "I don't want the fortune," she said, her tone ice, her flat steady on the marble, the crowd frozen, their breaths held. "I will sell everything, dismantle Whitmore Enterprises, and donate it all to orphaned children." The hall gasped, Veronica's scream, choking, Eleanor's hands trembling, Simon's face blank, the reporter's camera zooming. "As for you, you have 72 hours to vacate all former Whitmore properties." Grace continued, her hazel eyes scanning the front row, her silence a gavel, her power absolute. She pulled out her phone, its screen glowing, and executed a command, her fingers swift, the hall's air tightening as every Whitmore family bank account froze, their credit cards blocked on the spot, their wealth erased in seconds. The crowd's whispers turned to cries. Veronica's diamonds pawned in her mind, Eleanor's schemes exposed, Simon's job a memory. The media, invited by Grace's silent command, stormed the hall, their cameras flashing, their mics live, capturing the elite family, crying like clowns, their faces broadcast to the world. The audience felt a surge of justice, Grace's actions, a blade her restraint, a fire that burned brighter than their scorn, her power a legend that would haunt Rosebridge Manor's gilded walls. As Grace's phone command froze accounts, the family accountant who'd accused her of theft stood frozen. His ledger slipping, the crowd's whispers turning against him, their eyes judging his glasses, now a symbol of shame. A lawyer approached, his voice cold. "Your false claims cost you your license, leave now." His words a verdict on the accountant's greed. Grace's inheritance had exposed his slander, her power, a mirror reflecting his disgrace, her silence a gavel that silenced his career. The crowd ignored him, their cheers for Grace, her authority rewriting his narrative, her dress a symbol of victory. The reporters noted his ruin, his ledger worthless, his accusations erased. The audience felt a thrill, the accountant's professional ruin a testament to Grace's power, his accusation repaid with disgrace, a justice that echoed every lie he'd spread. The socialite cousin who'd mocked Grace's rural roots clutched her fur stole as the crowd's murmurs praised Grace, their cheers for her inheritance drowning her voice. A reporter approached his mic, sharp. "Your hayseed comment. Any regrets?" His words, a verdict on her arrogance, her face crumbling, her stole slipping. Grace's power had exposed her scorn, her inheritance, a mirror reflecting her shame, her silence, a gavel that silenced her status. The crowd ignored her, their eyes on Grace's presence, her authority erasing her clout, her dress a symbol of victory. The reporters broadcast her disgrace, her stole worthless, her mockery erased. The audience reveled in the justice, the cousin's social disgrace, a testament to Grace's dominance, her taunt repaid with ruin, a triumph that resonated with every sneer she'd given. The estate manager who'd accused Grace of manipulation stood paralyzed as the crowd's whispers turned to Grace's glory, their cheers for her power drowning his voice. A board member approached, his tone icy. "Your lies about her cost you your role." "You're out," his words a verdict on the manager's control. Grace's inheritance had exposed his deceit, her authority a mirror reflecting his shame, her silence a gavel that silenced his influence. The crowd ignored him, their eyes on Grace's presence, her power erasing his title, her dress a symbol of victory. The reporters noted his fall, his tie loosened, his accusations erased. The audience felt a surge of satisfaction. The manager's loss of authority, a testament to Grace's dominance, his accusation repaid with ruin, a justice that echoed every claim he'd made. The hall was a battlefield, the Whitmore dynasty gutted its chandeliers, flickering its portraits, watching in shame. Veronica stood, her emerald gown torn, her chignon a mess, her financial scandals already leaking to the press. Her clout erased her fear of irrelevance, a reality. A reporter approached, his mic thrust forward. "Ms. Whitmore, comment on your offshore accounts," his voice a verdict on her greed, her face crumbling, her diamonds worthless. Eleanor clutched her silk dress, her tax evasion charges filed, her lipstick a smear, her socialite status, a memory. The crowd turning away, her beauty no match for Grace's power. Simon stumbled, his Rolex pawned in his mind, his job at Whitmore Enterprises terminated, his betrayal exposed, the reporters noting his disgrace, his arm candy days over. The cousin who'd mocked her as a cleaner stood silent, his cufflinks dull, his laughter, a wound turned against him, his trust fund gone, his peers shunning him. The aunt who'd called her a leech stood frozen, her pearls dull, her taunt, a mistake that cost her respect, her status erased. The financial advisor who dismissed her as a dreamer stood silent, her clipboard useless, her scorn a regret that marked her as a fool, her career tarnished. The board member who'd called her a nurse muttered, "I didn't know she was his daughter." His nurse taunt a mistake that cost him his seat, his authority gone. The PR consultant, her tablet. Dark stood silent, her smear campaign a wound that cost her job, her ambition a mistake that left her unemployed. The junior heir, his cufflinks tarnished, stood silent, his silence taunt a wound that cost him his inheritance, his entitlement a mistake that marked his fall. The audience reveled in the justice, each antagonist's cruelty repaid their egos, dismantled by Grace's silence, a triumph that echoed every wound they'd inflicted. The manor's fate was sealed, its marble floors a testament to Grace's precision, its chandeliers a shrine to her domination, its portraits a monument to her return. Grace stepped forward, her worn flat silent, her black dress stained but regal, her bun a crown, her hazel eyes cold, her discipline a fire that had reshaped the Whitmore legacy. The crowd parted their whispers, trailing her. "That's Maxwell's daughter." She ended them. But Grace didn't look back. Her silence, her triumph, her flats scuffing the marble with the finality of a guillotine. Rosebridge Manor shut down its doors, locked its opulence, sold its legacy, upended its wealth, donated to orphans. Weeks later, it reopened as a community center, its new plaque reading, "Hope over Greed." The family who jeered her were gone, their names forgotten, their flutes shattered, their jewels pawned. The lawyers who dismissed her were disbarred, their briefcases abandoned, their authority erased. The reporters who doubted her were humbled, their headlines praising Grace, their skepticism a memory. Veronica's scandals filled tabloids, her empire a footnote, her greed a reality. Eleanor faced prison, her schemes a mockery, her reign ended by a woman she'd called help. Simon's career crumbled. His Rolex sold his betrayal, a wound that marked his fall. The manor was a battlefield where Grace had fought and won not with tears, but with one perfect strike. A command that shattered an empire, a dynasty, and a hierarchy. Its echo louder than any scream, its shadow longer than any fortune. She didn't scream, she didn't cry. She erased their empire, dismantled their legacy, and turned their lives into a global humiliation spectacle, like what you just witnessed. Like, share, comment your favorite face-slapping revenge moment. And subscribe for more stories where the outcast takes the throne and burns the castle down.